this is what you're doing from what I see. You and I are storytellers. I do it
Mhm.
through video, you do it through print, magazine, photographs, and all that. But we're all trying to find ways to tell these stories of incredible women. I don't think the majority of the American public really appreciates veterans the way they should, number one. And number two, especially women veterans who are like, oh, about maybe 18 to 20% of the total military force is comprised of women.
Yeah.
And it's well documented and well researched that the military would not function as well as it does if they only had to depend on the men,
That's
because women bring something special to the military. And you know, when I was in a long time ago, I was in the Women's Army Corps.
Mhm.
And I was in from 1968 to 71. And during my time, I was personnel specialist. And this was before computers. When I was in, the big computer was as big, if not bigger than my house. Okay. And now it's this size. So it's just amazing to see the technology, but everything I did was old school, manual, or in the records we created, because I was spent most of my military career, such as it was, 2 years, 11 months, and 4 days
Mm.
at Fort Knox, Kentucky, at the home of armor, and I was a personnel specialist, and I was a record keeper, basically.
Yeah, same here.
So, and nothing wrong with that. Somebody has to do it. And
Mhm.
I'd rather do that than be in an infantry unit with bullets coming my way. I can tell you that.
Mhm.
And I'm a military brat myself. I was
Same
born in
here.
Camp Pendleton and raised in the Marine Corps. And so for me, it was a natural. And all three of my parents, my father, my stepfather, and my mother, were World War II disabled veterans.
Right.
So in my mind, I didn't have a choice. And for me, it was the best choice I ever made in my life, was to go into the military. So having said that, the military is a great place to get equal pay for equal work, but there are still some issues with women in the military. And I think that's one of the reasons that you probably do your magazine.
Yes, it is. It is. It's the equality has a long way to go. You know, you read things online that you know, oh look, they're going to make the qualifications even between men and women. So now it's even. It's like, well, you know, there's so much more to it than that. You know, women are built different. The guys don't have breasts out to here and running however many miles they're running. You know, women are heavier on the back end. We have endocrine systems that are so different than the men, that affect our health so differently than the men. You know, and I could keep going on and on and on. We are not equal as far as bodies go, so we have to be treated equally with what we have with our body to each other. You know, and it can't just be, oh look, you're doing the same job as them, so you have to have the same qualifications. Well, that's great to an extent, but the thing is that it really knocks a lot of the women out. It doesn't give that equality. It doesn't allow for it. And while there are some women who can meet those qualifications, that's fantastic. I love that. I was stationed with a bunch of those type, you know, those women who could do that. But you're still looking at the majority of women not being able to qualify based on male standards. And so it's got a long ways to go. It really does. And I think it has a long way to go, not with just the men, but the women too. And the women who don't understand that we are different. They think, well, we want to be equal. We have to be equal on this footing. It's like, well, you know, until men can get pregnant, I'm sorry, but we are not going to be equal that way. It's, you know, and men will never get pregnant. So do you start treating them like they're pregnant at times? It's just, it doesn't work that way. So it's not as simple as people would like it to be. It's very complex, and I think it's going to continue to be an uphill battle for many years down the road.
For true equality to happen between men and women, they had to really teach each other. And this is, in my opinion, only my opinion, generational change. It won't happen. No, I don't have kids or grandkids, but it will happen maybe in your grandkids' lifetime or your great grandkids' lifetime.
Yes,
It
possibly.
happened in my lifetime, but I have seen progress because, listen, I was in, you could not be married. And oh my God, if you became pregnant, you were out, medical discharge. You were not allowed to be married when I was in the army. I was in from 68 to 71. You had to choose between marriage or the military, not both. And if you became pregnant,
Yeah, out
especially if
here.
you were not married,
Yep.
out you go. And you think of the millions of dollars over decades of time that women have been in the military,
Mhm.
of all the bright women they lost because they didn't change those archaic rules. I just think
Yep.
of the people, some of the women that I serve with, you know,
Yep.
um, and they left. And it's like, you know, finally, though, the military has realized the error of the ways and decided it was worth the time to adapt the military to a more feminine point of view, to
Yeah.
understand the feminine philosophy.
Yeah.
You know, just because I'm not as physically strong as a man in every other way doesn't mean I'm not as smart as, or usually in most cases, to be honest, women are usually smarter than men. It just is, sorry. Don't let them know that though.
Don't let the secret out. Don't let the secret out.
But anyway, we're just trying to figure out in the military how to make it work and make it a fair system for everyone involved. And,
Mhm.
you know, to do the right thing, work as a team member, accomplish the mission, all the military stuff they want you to do.
Mhm.
Because for me personally, being in the military really helped me to understand my parents more, because all three of my parents were disabled veterans. So they all had their issues. Both my father and my stepfather were Marine Corps combat World War II veterans, had gone through. However, my father had returned from Guadalcanal when he met my mother on a blind date.
Yeah.
So it's like they just had their issues, and that's just the way we grew up. I have a brother and I have a sister. Our military family had issues, as do all military families, because you're separating the family unit from the get-go. That certainly was issues in my own family. But
Yeah.
be that as it may, I wouldn't trade the life that I had because of everything I have now.
Yeah. And I envy people who had such great experiences that way in the military. Because like I said, looking back at my experiences and knowing what I went through and knowing what I'm going through right now, I often do sit there and think, like you asked me, what would I do? And I even saw it on one of the veterans groups for the one of the disability groups, and somebody asked, would you give all the money back in the world if you could have your health back? And I was really amazed at how many veterans says, oh, absolutely not. And I was like, wow, that floored me, because my health is so important to me, especially now more than ever. I mean, I'm 55 years old. It's difficult, and actually, I'll say this right now. A lot of people really already know this, but I came out of a 30-year background in graphic design and publishing and marketing out of the military. That's what I did for 30 years after the military. I still continue to do it, um, and I do a lot of illustration work. But I went into forestry and natural resources in 2013. I went back to college full time and became a full time in forestry, and I currently work as a in silviculture as a forestry technician for the U.S. Forest Service.
Wow, well, that's awesome.
Yes,
And publish a magazine on the
yeah,
side. Are you a crazy person or what?
yes, I am a crazy person, and it's how I keep my sanity. But and the thing is where my health plays into it is that I, in March, we planted 425,000 trees in our forest. And for those of you who are in California, I live in the area where the Rim Fire hit in 2013. And so we planted 425,000 trees in the month of March. And so in that 3.5 weeks we were planting, I hiked over 106 miles.
Wow.
That's a crazy person. And because of my Graves' disease, I struggle. I struggle with myopathy, with muscle myopathy. I don't hike fast. I'm actually the slowest one on my crew. Most people think I'm actually in my 40s, which is funny because I'm usually smiling and laughing, even though I'm dying because my feet are killing me and my legs are hurting and I can't do this very fast. And I remember we were going up a steep hill because we don't have trails and stuff. We just climb steep mountains and hills. And I was going after one of my coworkers, and she just do right up the hill. I was like, okay, I can do that. Well, no, I climbed up a third of the way, and I slid down a third of the way.
No.
It was not fun, and I had a meltdown. I had such a hard time that week because I'm finally realizing, don't compare yourself to the younger ones. Don't compare yourself to those who have never been in the military. Don't do it. Don't go there, because that's what I was doing, because I was feeling sorry for myself because I have Graves' disease and I could not function. I couldn't make my body work. And it was just very difficult for me to accept that. And I just finally had to kick myself in the butt after that week and said, okay, you got this. And I went on to, ended up doing 106 miles for that 3.5 weeks. And we're on doing other stuff right now. And I'm still hiking a lot every day. And I'm feeling good. I'm feeling better. And it feels nice. It really does. I mean, mind you, I'm still as slow as a turtle, but I'm still doing my job, and I get paid to hike. So what the heck? I mean, how lucky am I? I'm sitting on the top of hillsides day after day, looking at the clouds in the sky and the snow across in Yosemite and thinking, I am probably one of the luckiest people in the world to be doing what I'm doing, even despite having Graves' disease. And I'm still battling it. I mean, it's a nice feeling. It really is. And I think that is something I got out of the military, was that drive to keep moving forward and to keep doing stuff that I'm doing. And on top of that, I'm actually in college as well. I'm enrolled at Oregon State,
Do you
so I
sleep?
take classes. What's that, Cheryl?
I'm sorry. Do you sleep?
You know what? I wish I could sleep most of the time. I try. I go to bed early. I wake up early. I work 12-hour days sometimes, sometimes longer than that, and 7 days a week. And I actually had today off, but I had to go to a VA appointment. So I had to drive up to Sacramento, 2.5 hours north, do what I needed to do there for an hour, then drive back 2.5 hours down here. So that was 6 hours yeah, 6 hours of my day. And I've got tomorrow off, going to spend them with the grandkids.
Oh, well, very good. Well, very good. So you have, how many kids do you have and how many grandkids do you have?
Well, I have two children. My son is 35 and he's been in the Air Force for 14 and a half years. And he's actually stationed at Beale, which is, if you look at the really cool artwork right behind me there, he had that signed. That's the U2. He had that signed for my husband. It's signed on the back. And that's from Beale Air Force Base. And then my daughter is 27 and she'll be 28 in September. So she's not too far to go, but and she just accepted a job in Antarctica.
I saw that when you posted that. That's amazing and good for her. What an incredible opportunity.
Yes, and she's also a filmmaker as yourself. She's got a degree in film from UC Santa Cruz, and she decided to go into a support capacity to go to Antarctica, and eventually look into their grants program to hopefully get over there on an artist grant to be able to do something in what she loves to do, which is maybe film or another type of art. She will be at the McMurdo station, which is the big place. And if you ever saw the John Carpenter's movie, The Thing, that's the station that they are stationed at.
Amazing.
And I also found out, Cheryl, this is fascinating. As a civilian going to McMurdo Station, the civilians get medals.
I'm very impressed with what you're doing now. But before we get into that, I know you're a veteran and I know you served in the Air Force. So I'd like for you to tell us a little bit about your veteran story.
Well, so I joined the military when I was 17. I put my hand up when I was 17, basically in 1983, fresh out of high school. Basically joined. My dad was an Army. He was in the Army at the time. Kind of wanted to follow in his footsteps, but I joined the Air Force, so he didn't know much about the Air Force, so he couldn't tell me what to do and what not to do. And I ended up going in March of '84. I served 3 years regular active duty at George Air Force Base in Southern California, and that base shut down, I believe, in 1990. Somewhere in the early 90s. And then I actually went in Palace Chase in 1987 and headed up to Moffett Field to serve with the 129th Rescue Group in Northern California. And there I actually discovered the AGR program, which is an active guard reservist program. So I was active duty Air Force with an Air National Guard unit. And that was for 7 years. So In total, I served 10 years, 2 months, and 3 days with the Air Force and those capacities.
So very good. Would you trade your military experience? Would you trade what you learned in the military? If you had
Um,
your life to live over again, would you still join?
you know what? Probably. And that's because of when I was at George Air Force Base, I actually was exposed to chemicals at George Air Force Base that I did not know about at the time as a young person. And I lived in the World War II barracks that sat on top of a benzene plume, and that's the rubber stuff. And of course, it's coming through the aquifers, and when you're drinking that, it causes your health to have issues. And I also ended up living in base housing, and the aquifers were poisoned with organophosphates or dieldrin, which is actually banned now. You can't even spray that anymore. And that's the stuff they used to spray around the base housing. And my son, he was a baby at the time. We used to go outside and play in the dirt all the time, and that's some of the stuff we got into. And because of that, I actually have Graves' disease. I was not diagnosed in the military, but I did have it while I was in the military. When you go back and look at your medical records, and you see all the signs, but they didn't know a lot about it back then, it appears. So I suffer from Graves' disease. I'm in remission, but I still suffer the symptoms. And so yes, I would actually give my entire military career if I could have my health. As far as learning goes, I was a 702 in the Air Force. That was my AFSC at the time. That's an information systems manager. And I was fortunate enough to end up in the publications distribution office, which meant I got to write policies, technical orders, publications for our unit. I also got to do the layouts and put them together. So it took me into the publishing world. It was kind of cool, actually. That I would not want to trade because it actually got me to where I'm at right now. So it's kind of a balancing act, really. Do I want my health back? Absolutely. I would throw my entire military career back for my health. The publishing part of it is what gets me. So maybe I would have gotten there in another way. I just don't know. And so that's kind of, in a nutshell, my military career.
And you live in Northern California, is that right?
I do. I live right outside of Yosemite National Park. Basically, I'm surrounded by the Stanislaus National Forest. I live in a little town called Groveland. It's the entryway to the northern part of Yosemite National Park.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you are no longer in the military, because when I heard about your idea, I thought that is a fantastic idea. And I want you to tell us a little bit about what inspired you to come up with the AVOW magazine. And I will just go ahead and educate people and let them know what AVOW actually means. So it means American Veteran Organization of Women. But the other meaning to it is that everyone that goes into the military has to take a vow,
That's correct.
their hand. And so it has kind of what they call a double entendre meaning there. So what
Absolutely.
inspired you? Because it's brilliant, it's beautiful, it's recording history, is telling incredible stories of women veterans just doing amazing things.
I have a friend of mine, Sheila Holmes. She's the editor in chief, and basically, her and I grew up in the same town, and she is an Air Force veteran. And believe it or not, we grew up in the same town, but we have never met in person before. And she knows a lot of my family members. I know a lot of the people she grew up around, vice versa. And so we connected via Facebook many, many years ago. And finally, we just talk about topics and things that come up with veterans, with women veterans. And we were talking about the American Legion and how you can flip open an American Legion magazine and you don't see women in it. Yeah, you just don't. And she had had a difficult time with one of the legions that she had belonged to or that she was working with. And she said, you know what, this is just crazy. And I said, well, why don't we just do a magazine of our own? The two of us will work. I knew what her background was. I knew she was an editor. She was in public relations and stuff. And I thought, what a great mixture. You've got somebody like me who does graphic design and layout and a publishing background. And she's got the editing part of it. And together combined, we could do, the dynamic duo between the two of us. So she said, "Yeah, let's do it." And lo and behold, we discussed that back in, I want to say 2018. Yeah, 2018, and then we finally jumped on it in the spring of 2019. Started putting things together and had our first issue that summer. So it just came along. And Avow, the name itself, this is kind of funny. So the name Avow came up as an, it's not really an acronym. It is the name Avow. But the thing is people, we knew people would wonder, well, what does that mean? And it's the once you said the double entendre, that is correct. The thing is what makes it the double entendre is we gave the name, which is Avow, we actually gave it the brevity code, or so you would say, we gave it a name, which is the American Veteran Organization of Women. So technically it is not an official group or women who get together and have meetings, because we're not. We are like-minded women, which makes us an organization. We're a service organization. We're a military organization. We are women. We served. And so technically the American Veteran Organization of Women is an afterthought as far as the name goes. The name is Avow. That's what we go by. And if you want to break it down, then sure, call it the other name, but Avow is what the magazine is truly called. And so that double entendre actually weighs towards the shorter name. And we really like that and we prefer that.
Now you publish this magazine quarterly, correct? So you
That
do
is correct.
4 issues a year,
Mhm,
and you tell some pretty amazing stories. Now
mhm.
I've read a couple of the issues because I have them actually right here, and I love them all.
Aha.
About Sharon McDougall's mothership connection.
That
Please.
is my favorite, Cheryl. That is absolutely my favorite story to tell. Um, Sharon and I, oh my gosh, I felt like a sister separated at birth with Sharon. I still do. I cannot wait to meet her. We have a lot of things in common. And yeah, I was just floored being able to just sit on the phone with her and interview her and talk, speak with her. And oh, we had such a blast with that interview. We really did. I mean, I could have just kept going and going and going. Oh my gosh, yes, Kismet. She's amazing. A lot of people may not know this, so this will be the first time I've actually talked about it. Sharon does. But the Mothership Connection, the title of that article, it in light of BLM and things that are going on nowadays, Mothership Connection was by Parliament. It was a song that was very political, and I kind of wanted to throw it on the cover. And most people probably didn't catch that it's a political song that came out way back when. And if you ever get a chance, yeah, go find out what it's about. It fit the fight that's going on so well and tied in directly with Sharon's article. And yeah, I love it. That's my favorite one.
First, when I got these magazines, when you shipped them out a few months back, I saw that cover. That's the first one I read. I said, it's a great story.
Or
And
she's a phenomenal woman.
and you have a very artistic background, and I know you do more than just, not that like this isn't enough. First of all, before I forget to say this, I want to say thank you for the graphics you made for BHB TV, because I really love it.
Yeah, the new logo. Yep. I loved working on that. I'm so happy you like it.
I'm very happy, so thank you. And you do other kinds of art as well, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Oh, I do tons of art. I've been an artist since I was old enough to pick up a crayon and draw on a wall. I used to do a lot of design in the military. Audiovisual was across the hall from my office, and I consistently did posters for them. I don't have to do everything on the computer. I can draw by hand. I do a lot of artistic renderings. I do paintings. I watercolor. Pen and ink is actually my favorite, and I do a lot of digital art. And one of my favorite things that I've been doing for the last couple of years now is alcohol labels, beer labels, wine labels. Actually, I've been doing it longer than a couple of years because I've done a lot of wine labels. So I've been doing those for about 10 years. I just started doing beer labels, and they're so much fun. You can get so artistic with them. And I've been designing for a local brewery, and they really like my artwork. So I've been doing quite a few designs for them.
You've been an artist your whole life, but I would like for you to speak to the power of art in its many forms and how it helps you.
Well, it's funny that you say that too, actually, because you probably didn't know this, but my husband and I founded a nonprofit back in, we started in 1998. It was called Art Quotient. Instead of what's your IQ, what's your AQ? And we started it to help kids, K through 12. And we used to produce a publication with their artwork in it. We used to have exhibits all over the United States. And I mean, we had some really cool stuff going on there. And one of the main reasons we had started that is because our son and our daughter are both artists. So even though my son is in civil engineer in the military, he's a brilliant commercial photographer and a beautiful artist, and he's also a musician. And my daughter, same thing. She's a cinematographer, a filmmaker. She also plays a lot of music, instruments, and she's also an artist. She does some beautiful, beautiful work and does animations and stuff. So it's just phenomenal to see when you've got kids like that and you're an artist yourself, you understand where they're coming from and you can nurture that.
This is what I like about art, because you take it from in here, from
Mm-hmm.
inside your head, and you manifest it in a physical form.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you're doing, whether you do it through drawing or painting or sculpture or whatever. And that, to me, I have since in this last 5-6 years, I've been liberated
Mm-hmm.
in a way I wasn't before.
Mm-hmm.
Because now I have proved it to no one else but myself that I can be creative in a way I didn't think I had the ability to do.
And you don't care what people think at this point because you've lived life.
You found a way to make your dream come true, giving up a $55,000 a year job with no college degree because the call of the forest, the call of the trees was calling to you. And you found a way to make that happen. And I'm no different. And I could sit in my house. I'm retired. I have a nice pension from the state of California.
Mm-hmm. You can do whatever you want to.
I can do whatever I want, and I choose to spend my life, my retirement years, telling stories of women veterans, not just women veterans, but coincidentally, the 12 interviews we have done have all been with women veterans.
People ask me a lot of times because I didn't make a lot of women friends in the military. I really didn't. I'm getting to know more military women, and I'm really impressed with all the military women I'm meeting and the friends I'm making, the contacts I'm making. Melissa Washington. There's just so many I'm connecting with, and I feel so good. And I feel like, wow, I connect with these women better than I did when I was in the military, because there wasn't a lot of us still when I joined, in the 80s.
I have found my sense of purpose in doing these interviews, and especially since the pandemic, because I can do all of this stuff on this computer that I'm doing the Zoom call. I do everything on this computer sitting in my office.
Yeah.
It's one thing to watch TV, but it's something quite else to make the TV